はい、皆様いかがお過ごしでしょうか。イーさんです。アウターワールド続きをプレイしていきます。なんか待ち構えてますね。あれボスなのかな。ボスでももうちょっと早いよな。最終ボスにしては。さあさあさあさあさあ。実弾系ショットガン。どうしようかな。アサルトで行ってみるか。ここですね。RA。うわ、まだ来た。やばいぞ。られてる。銃がダッシュしたときにどこだ。 やられた。
Resetting threat level. Investigating.
さすがラスボス。後ろでもダメージそんな大きかったかな。後ろ多分あれ弱点ですよね。後ろのタンクみたいなやつか、コアみたいな。うん。どうしよう。まあやっぱりプラズマがいいんだよな一番。もうちょいですね。でもいけそう、いけそう、いけそう。もうちょい。倒した。冷凍精密鍵。いやー、強引にいけましたね。よかった。そっか、一気にこう落ちましたもんね、こうドローンが。で、こっちか。あら、こんな綺麗な。刑務所には似つかわしくない。
Why won't you just die?
はい。
And the crowd goes wild.
Get
me out of here.
開かないですね。おお、いた。
You don't know how glad I am to see you. You did the right thing. Akande was a monster. Her death was much deserved and long overdue. And you lunatic, You broke into the board's own fortress just to rescue one doddering old man. You are absolutely out of your mind, and I can't begin to thank you enough.
大丈夫か、奴らは何をされた？
I'm all right, thanks to you. Akande wanted my cooperation. I'm quite sure she would have beaten it out of me if you hadn't arrived. You've broken the board's stranglehold on this colony, and you saved my life. But there's still so much we have yet to accomplish. You and I are going to have to work harder than ever to save Halcyon. I'm afraid the situation is far worse than any of us ever anticipated.
全く嬉しくない話だな。
Earth has gone dark. We haven't received a single message in 3 years. There's been no communication, no signals,
テ
nothing.
ラ2がある、テラ1がない。いない
2 years ago, the Earth's Directorate's frigate disappeared on their way back to Earth. We don't know what they discovered when they arrived, or if they arrived at all.
Hold on, Doc. Are you telling me the Earth went dark 3 years ago? And the board's just been covering this up?
They've been incredibly effective at concealing the truth. Right now, the only people in the colony who know are standing in this room.
So we've got to make do on our own. Seems to me that'll make us stronger in the end anyhow.
You're quite right. We've got no choice but to make do on our own. We're in serious trouble, my friend. Do you know what this means for Halcyon? We can't rely on Earth for support anymore. We've been cut loose. We're entirely on our own.
これからやることがたくさんあるな。仕事に取り掛かるのが一番だ。
Yes, you're right. The road is long, and we haven't a moment to waste.
それで食料危機とかな。
Must begin the revival process immediately, starting with the hope's brightest minds. And then we're going to fix this damn colony, one problem at a time. We're going to need a leader, and I can't imagine a better person for the job than you. What do you say, old friend? Will you help us?
誰かがこの頃に応援しなければその敵にじゃちょっと自信満々に。
You won't hear a word of disagreement from me. When I revived you, I thought we were going to save this colony all by ourselves. But I was wrong. We can't save Halcyon on our own. We're all going to have to pull together, somehow. We are not a colony anymore. Our last connection to Earth has been severed. I don't know if we'll survive, but we're going to have to try our best.
De? Oh,
The OSI teaches that everything in the universe happens according to the grand plan.
筋トロ。
But the stranger that arrived in Halcyon was an unplanned variable. From the moment he landed in Emerald Vale, his actions altered the course of history. The events on Tartarus brought about the end
字
of the
幕が出
board's
ないので何
authority,
を言ってるのか。
but the board's
とりあえず
mistakes
二人
would
は頑張
haunt
っ
the
て
colony for decades to come. The damage they
立て
left
直したっていう
behind
感じ
would
ですかね。
require the work of a
ハルシオン。
generation to repair.
っていうことを言ってる
Dr.
のかな。
Phineas Wells began reviving a handful of the Hope's colonists. Engineers, scientists, technicians, and intellectuals. They were among the brightest minds the Earth had ever sent out into the stars. The Hope scientists and engineers woke up in a colony descending headlong into total collapse. With no way to return to Earth, they had no choice but to band together and devote themselves to the cause of saving Halcyon. The people of Halcyon were nothing if not hardy. In the absence of the board's authority, many of the colony's settlements banded together with a single purpose in mind: survival. Life was especially hard in the years to come. Some towns dissolved by attrition and starvation, but most of them found a way to carry on. In the years to come, Halcyon was forced to reckon with its newfound freedom. The board was gone, and for better or worse, the colony was responsible for its own destiny. Sanjar's civil liberties and worker-centric policies were slow to catch on with the other corporations. But as Halcyon began its long, arduous journey toward recovery, many of Terra 2's smaller townships started adopting MSI's alternative corporate structure and eventually became entirely self-sufficient. In the coming years, many of these townships managed to eke by, where otherwise they might have starved. The collapse of Edgewater left its workers bereft of any purpose in life. Most of them made their way to Adelaide McDevitt's camp, hoping to ingratiate themselves into her favor. Adelaide accepted only a few to her community. The rest were turned away and likely died of starvation. Nevertheless, Adelaide's camp grew into a well-established town. Adelaide McDevitt refused to cooperate with the ongoing effort to save Halcyon from collapse. A sympathetic deserter stole a copy of her research and delivered it to the Hope's scientists. It is unclear how useful Adelaide's research was. An optimistic estimate suggests her work may have bought Halcyon another few years of survival. Adelaide would never know. She died that winter. Under the leadership of Junlei Tennyson, the Groundbreaker held firm against corporate influence. The ship's mechanical stability gave Junlei the time to educate a promising generation of engineers, schooled in her family's traditions. The future of the Groundbreaker looks promising. The rediscovery of the Hope and the abandonment of the lifetime employment program forced Byzantium to come to terms with some uncomfortable realities about the state of Halcyon. While Byzantines were reluctant to surrender the luxuries they'd grown accustomed to, the board's diminished authority gave them little choice in the matter. Nearly everyone had to learn to make do with less. Some even had to get jobs. It was a dark time indeed. Life in Halcyon was sobering for Felix Millstone. The grand revolution he dreamed of never came. There was no great awakening for the colony, no celebrations in the streets. There was only the hard, desperate work of trying to repair a broken colony. Felix never had a head for numbers, but if there was labor to be done, he was there to help. Eventually, Felix realized that the work of a revolution was done with two hands. Though Parvati eventually grew comfortable aboard the Unreliable, she never quite came out of her shell. She seemed to prefer the company of Ada to the crew, and she could often be found neck-deep in cables and grease, telling Ada funny stories from her childhood. While the colony fell into chaos, she found an island of relative peace with Ada, and they formed an unusual bond. She decided to remain aboard the Unreliable permanently as its chief and sole engineer. Nyoka returned to Monarch to take another crack at making a permanent life for herself. She formed the Charon Group, an MSI subsidiary of ragtag survivalists and wilderness experts. Anyone in need of a guide, or just looking to throw back a beer and swap stories, could find her camping on the trail or clearing an infestation. The SAM unit that accompanied you spread awareness of the product line's superior sanitation and maintenance capabilities across what was left of the colony. This led to a boost in SAM unit sales. Did you know that SAM units are the longest-lasting, toughest-acting cleaning solution in Halcyon? Though Minister Clark was eventually released from house arrest, long years of isolation left him a changed man, little suited for bureaucratic work or for the colony that was changing around him. He remained in his estate largely by choice, fading from public view. As for Dr. Phineas Wells, he spent his remaining years in his orbital lab. Though he was always haunted by the failures of his past, he was determined to make things right by building toward the future. The revival project was hard and painful work, but in the end, despite limited resources, over half the Hope's colonists were successfully revived. Even after Wells passed away, the Hope scientists and engineers worked night and day to pull Halcyon from the brink of collapse. Their efforts continue to this day, which may be reason enough for optimism. Dr. Wells laid the groundwork for the project to save the colony, but he would never live to see the fruits of his labor. He passed away a few years later. His work was carried on by the scientists and engineers he revived. Life will never be the same in Halcyon. It is widely agreed that the colony has a chance of stabilizing within a generation, owing to the hard work and determination of the surviving colonists. Recovery is a distant goal, and the path is long and uncertain. But the people of Halcyon carry on, determined as ever. And what about you, the unplanned variable in the history of Halcyon? You brought an end to the chaos on Tartarus, and proved yourself the most capable leader left in the colony. You administered the colony in your own image. With the old power of the board destroyed, a new government of Halcyon rose with you at its center. With your steady hand, you guided Halcyon through the turbulent years that were to follow, and helped ensure the survival of the colony until the end of your days. No one knows what's happened to Earth, and no one knows what the future has in store for Halcyon. All we know for certain is this: the name of the Unreliable and that of its intrepid captain will remain the subject of countless stories for years to come.
お、わりかな、スタッフロールね。はい、というわけで、アウターワールドメインストーリークリアということです。ちょっとそうですね、システム的には本当にフォールアウト、私フォールアウト好きなので、すごい楽しめました。一応なんかそうですね、ボリューム的にはもうあんまりそんな多くはないとは聞いてたんで、ですけど、まあ、程よい感じなんじゃないでしょうか。サブクエとか全然やってないし、街の探索がほとんどしないので、余計そう感じたのかもしれない。もっとこう、細かいところを見ていけば、時間がすごいかかるかなというところ。そうですね、仲間もまだ、一応もう、ネットの情報とか知ってるんですけど、あと2人ぐらい仲間がいるはずです。私はちょっと駆け足でやったので、その辺とかも仲間にしてみます。もっとそうですね、いろいろこう細かいところもあれば、クエストとかもっと楽しめたのかなと思います。フォールアウトと比較してなんですけど、やっぱりちょっと廃墟好きなんですけど、やっぱりこういう近未来の世界の廃墟はあんまりこうそそらないな。ちょっともうちょっとこう今の現実世界に近い廃墟の方がすごいなっていうところですね。これはまあ人の好き好きだと思います。はい、というわけで、今回アウターワールドに関しては以上となります。これまでご視聴いただきましてありがとうございます。ではまた次のゲームでお会いしましょう。さようなら。